All right, well, happy Friday, Central Georgia. It's meteorologist Ansley Parker here. I'm in for Alex Pry this morning. He is on a well-earned vacation, so we're going to take a look at the extended weekend forecast together this morning. Now, there's kind of been a lot of changes in the forecast as of lately. We've had some really below average temperatures for the past couple of days. If you're a fan of that, I've got good news for you for the weekend. It's just going to come with some caveats. We got some increased rain chances coming up for the weekend, and the cloud cover that you've been waking up for the past couple of days to is going to stick with us as well. So as long as you can handle those two things, you can keep your cooler temperatures until we get to about the midweek next week. We'll talk about all of that. I'll show you what the models are thinking on your rain chances. We'll get into all of it here in just a minute, but we're going to start like we always do with the sky cams across the area. Everybody has kind of the same scene right now. And again, this is the same scene that we've had for several days across the area. It just means a lot of low-level clouds out there. Clouds that almost look like they could drop a shower at any moment, and that's kind of going to be the case heading into the rest of the day, especially over here in Perry. I'll step out of the way so you can get a picture at Perry's sky cam. A lot of those clouds looking ominous, despite there actually not being anything out there on the radar right now. So kind of the same look and feel, again, that you've had for several mornings here, but it will ultimately be a good thing if you're into the cooler numbers because it'll keep those around. How about the high for today? 85 degrees, which is actually the same high that we hit yesterday. The average for this time of year is 93, so still well below average for this time of year. Now for the day planner, I've thrown on this statement here that you could catch a shower or a brief storm or two, but I really think that most places today are going to stay entirely dry. I've just kind of thrown this on there just to cover the bases in case one of those clouds starts to get a bit heavy, maybe tries to drop a shower. Otherwise, I think what you felt yesterday can almost be rinse and repeat, copy and pasted over to today. We really don't have many changes in the way from yesterday to today. It's kind of the same story, but the rain chances will increase as we head towards the weekend, which again, we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So over the past couple of days, we've seen the wedge pattern that we had earlier this week kind of start to break apart. So we're not really truly sitting under it anymore, but we still have flow coming in from the northeast. So we still kind of have some drier air being filtered into our area, and we still have the cloud cover that's keeping our numbers a lot cooler. You can see numbers across the entire state are fairly consistent, up from North Georgia down here to Macon. Both temperatures are at 73 degrees, and then as we go a little bit further south, that's where things get a bit warmer in the upper 70s and the low 80s. How about our area specifically? I'll tell you what, these numbers have hardly moved so far this morning. We saw mainly low 70s, a couple of upper 60s in the overnight hours last night. Now we're sitting somewhere in the low 70s to mid 70s. Our warmest spot on the board is McRae down there at 77, and everybody else is at a fairly comfortable number. It's not so bad outside, not only in terms of the temperatures, but also in terms of the humidity. I know that there's still dark green on the map. We're used to kind of seeing this mugginess on there, but it's actually not quite as bad as it could be. You can see some peaks of lighter green on the map there, indicating that we do have some pockets of drier air in between some of the muggier air that we have outside. So we're used to sometimes seeing these dew points climb into the mid 70s, sometimes even upper 70s and even low 80s in some of the really moist spots. So right now, having these dew points down in the low 70s is actually not quite as bad as it could be. I'm not necessarily implying that it's super dry fall air out there, but it's not quite as oppressive as some of the humidity that we tend to have here in the summer in central Georgia. This again is due to the northeasterly flow that we have building into our area. So with all that being said, there's really not a ton going on outside right now, which is not a bad thing at all. We just have a lot of cloud cover. And if you look across the southeast here, you can see it's not just us who has the cloud cover. It's sort of built in across the entire state of Georgia and kind of building into the Carolinas here as well. It's a calm scene. We have a high pressure system over our area. Down further towards the south, it's a bit more active. You can see some showers and storms off towards the coast here. A little more activity happening off towards the panhandle. There is still a stationary boundary over here in northern Florida, pushing off the coast all the way up off the coast of North Carolina. This has led to another low pressure system off in the coast that we're going to talk about a little bit more, because that is one of the regions that the National Hurricane Center is watching once again for potential tropical development. Now you'll remember that stationary boundary actually ended up forming the low pressure system that formed into Tropical Storm Dexter. Things with this low pressure system not looking as promising, but just to kind of show you big picture, it's all going to tie together here in just a couple of minutes. So in our specific area, we're really just talking about clouds. If you don't see your county covered in clouds, but you're thinking I see clouds out there, that's just because of the scan of the level of the atmosphere that this satellite image is taking. Everybody has clouds. They're just kind of at different levels of the atmosphere in different spots. A lot of low level clouds further down towards the south and towards the east. You can even see some pockets of maybe some rain that's not quite reaching the surface in a couple of areas. And again, that's going to be the trend through the day today as well. If we kind of flip this over to just the radar, you can see some of that there. But other than that, there's really no rain in the area. And again, it should be a fairly dry day today. The rain chances will increase tomorrow. However, we've had plenty of rain though. We don't necessarily need any more. These are just the rainfall totals from the last 5 days. If I had pulled this graphic just a couple of days ago, you would see a whole lot more yellow and red and even a lot more areas of pink, maybe even some areas of gray on there, just to indicate these are rainfall estimates from the radar that we had a lot of rainfall over the past couple of days. I don't need to tell you that. When we were underneath the wedge pattern, we had consistent bands of rain just filtering over our area over and over and over, and that ended up in some really impressive rainfall amounts over the last couple of days. Now, it felt like a lot, but we also had a really dry July, so it ended up kind of evening things out on the where we should be for this time of year in terms of rainfall totals. But in local spots, it did end up being a lot. So we do still have an aerial flood warning for the Oconee over here in parts of Wilkinson, Washington, Lawrence, and Baldwin counties here. This is just to monitor the flood levels of the river as the rain kind of starts to die down again. The rainfall totals were really high. The Oconee wasn't the only one with an aerial flood warning. We also had one for the Okmulgee here in Bibb County. That has since subsided, and the river, I think, peaked right around 20 feet. So yeah, we got a really good amount of rain. Nothing historic by any means, but we definitely saw a lot of rain in a really short amount of time earlier this week. We kind of needed it though. If you take a look at where things stand on the drought monitor here, we were starting to creep into abnormally dry conditions. Now this drought monitor gets updated every Tuesday, so despite all the rain that we had, we still have some pockets mainly in the center region of central Georgia here where we still have abnormally dry spots. I'm wondering if kind of as we head into next Tuesday, with the rain that we've had, with the rain that we could continue to have this weekend and in the upcoming work week, if this may even itself out. But again, I mentioned this before, July was a really dry month, so we ended up kind of dipping into not necessarily drought conditions, but certainly abnormally dry conditions for the summertime months. So speaking of that, let's kind of take a look at where we stand in terms of rainfall totals for this year. Now look, you can see we were in the green, meaning that we were well above where we should be for this time of year for several months, March all the way to June. But as we head into July, we took a big hit in terms of the rainfall that we saw. We were well below average, not only for the month of July, but also for where we should be for this time of year. About over 3.5 inches below where we should be for this time of year in the month of July. Now that we've entered August, and remember, it's only August 8th, so we haven't made it even very far into August, but we're already sitting close to 2.5 inches back in kind of the green here, so back in the positive of where we should be for this time of year. So the rainfall that we had definitely helped set us back on the right path for where we should be for this time of year. We're still sitting over 3.5 inches above average for our yearly rainfall total. So overall, I know it kind of felt like a lot when it was happening. You're probably sick of it, and the dreary skies weren't necessarily the best after too many days of it, but overall it was kind of a helpful thing to kind of make up for what we lost here in the month of July. But I mentioned there's going to be increased rain chances heading into the weekend, so let's talk a little bit more about that. So for the past day or so, and this morning and the rest of today, rain chances are going to stay fairly low. You may catch maybe a brief shower or storm. It sounds like the chances are going to be better the further east you are and the further south you are. So kind of south of 16 here. That's probably why the future view is picking up on a couple of showers down there in Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery. Anything you do see today is going to be very short-lived and extremely isolated. It's just kind of scattered rain chances. By no means is it going to be a washout. That's the rest of the day today. How are you going to start your day off on Saturday? Very similar to today. You're going to have a lot of cloud cover to start the morning off. It's going to look probably similar to how it does outside. A couple clouds out there look like they could drop a shower, look like they might want to, but they might not. That's going to be a similar sight for Saturday morning, except a couple of those clouds may actually end up dropping a shower. Anything that pops up in the morning, again, extremely isolated, short-lived, not necessarily a wash of a morning by any means. By the time we hit the afternoon, I think there could be some breaks in some of these clouds, which would allow for the sunshine to kind of creep in here and have some daytime heating that could bubble up a couple of showers, maybe a couple of thunderstorms in there as well. What's going to be happening is we're going to have some flow coming in from the coast. That's going to build some more moisture into our area, and that's why the rain chances will be up a bit as we head throughout the weekend. So maybe a slightly better shot at catching one of those isolated showers or storms heading throughout the day on Saturday. Again, by no means do I think that this is going to be a washout. I think this is just kind of where we return to our typical summertime thing. Throw an umbrella or a rain jacket in your car if you're heading out for outdoor plans, because the potential is back for you to get stuck in maybe a shower or a storm in the afternoon and evening if you're out and about. So that'll be kind of the situation on Saturday, and then as it does here in the summer, anything that pops up will start to die down as we head into the overnight hours. Sunday, if you couldn't guess it, will start off the exact same way as Saturday. We'll have widespread cloud cover across the area once again. A couple of these clouds may try to drop a brief shower if they have enough moisture, and then as we head into the afternoon, some breaks in some of the cloud cover may result in a couple of showers and storms beginning to pop up with the heat of the day. Again, it's really dependent on the moisture that's going to be building in from the low pressure system off the East Coast. So we'll kind of see some more moisture in our area. Same situation as Saturday, not a washout by any means, but a couple of showers and storms will begin to pop up as we head into the heat of the day on Sunday, and then everything will die down in the overnight hours. Now, it's going to be a similar story to start the work week off. Monday and likely Tuesday are going to follow a very similar pattern. So let's just talk about your weekend for now, and then we'll get into the upcoming work week. For today, rain chances are fairly low. We're really not going to see much in the way of rain. There's a chance for maybe a brief shower or storm, but it's pretty low end at that. You'll likely just be dealing with clouds for most of the day today. Heading into the weekend, we'll bump the rain chance up from 20 to 30. So still not total coverage on a lot of these showers and storms, but there's a slightly better chance of you catching one, especially if we get more breaks in the clouds through the weekend than we do today. That will allow for more showers and storms to pop up. If the cloud cover's heavier, showers and storms won't really pop up quite as much. Either way, we're going to have a lot more moisture, so it's also going to feel a bit more muggy. The one thing that does not change heading into the weekend is the numbers. The high temperature for today forecasted to be 85. Check out the highs for the weekend. Not forecasted to jump up much higher than that. With cloud cover still in the area, with rain chances still in the area, we're really just going to stay in the mid 80s or the upper 80s in a couple of the warmer spots. So really not expected to jump back up towards the 90s for the weekend. It should still be comfortable, and if you can avoid showers, should still be a great chance to get outside and enjoy what's left of the 80s here, although they won't be going anywhere for the early part of the work week. So don't feel like this is your last chance to catch them. They'll be back as we go throughout Monday, Tuesday, likely Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and then we kind of creep our way back towards the 90s at the end of the 7-day forecast. So overall, a good weekend. It's just going to be a bit cloudy. You may have to duck and dodge some rain from time to time, but it should still be a good chance to get outside, especially with cooler numbers still in the forecast. But I mentioned rain chances are going to stick around in the early work week. So let's talk a little bit about that. Monday, I know it kind of looks like it's widespread rain on the long range models. You know how this thing goes. When we have higher resolution models, it's a lot easier to pinpoint where the rain's falling. When we have lower resolution models, it shows up in big blobs like this. It really just means the same thing that you just saw on the graph model here. We have some isolated scattered rain chances throughout the day on Monday. Rain chances will still be up, and that's going to stay the same throughout Tuesday as well. There may be a dip in the rain chances as we head Wednesday into Thursday, and that may help out with the numbers starting to climb up just a little bit more. So that's why I mentioned the warming trend that will be on kind of on the end of the 7-day forecast. If the rain chances taper off here towards the end, that means our rain chances, or not our rain chances, our temperatures are going to start to jump back up. So really kind of looking like we'll have widespread rain chances Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Things look like they start to taper off, and I'm hoping, we can't quite get out far just yet, but I'm hoping that that means next weekend will look pretty good as well. So I talked a little bit about moisture that's going to be filtering into our area. So let's talk a little bit more about where exactly it's coming from. Most of our weather for the past week or even longer has been driven largely by this high pressure system here and this stationary boundary that's off the coast here. Now this stationary boundary has now shifted further south of our area, so it's not quite pushing as much moisture into our area as it was earlier in the week. All that moisture earlier in the week was fueling the continuous rounds of rain that we had in our area with the wedge pattern that we had. This high pressure system was pushing the wedge our direction, and we were just locked in on the same pattern for many, many, many days. Now this has moved further south and off towards the coast. You can see the showers that it's spurring up off the coast it has also spurred a low pressure system off the coast as well. We talked about this. This low pressure system is going to push a little more moisture into our area over the next couple of days. So that was the moisture I was talking about that may add to the rain chances through the weekend and through the early work week. Not only is it pushing moisture into our area, but it's also being monitored for potential tropical development. So let's talk a little bit more about that. You saw the low pressure there on the surface map, but here's kind of what it looks like outlined by the National Hurricane Center. It's a couple of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Not a very impressive area of that. And the chances of development, just to start off with the good news, have steadily dropped over the last couple of days. We were watching this thinking maybe it had the chance to support tropical development, but what's going to happen here is this low pressure system is just going to keep drifting towards the northeast. Eventually, it's going to run into that frontal boundary that I just showed you, and they're going to kind of absorb each other, and it won't really be able to support any further development. So as it gets closer to doing that, probably doing that sometime this weekend, the chances of development just continue to tank. So you can see now from the National Hurricane Center, we stand at 10% chance of development over the next 2 days or over the next 7 days. It essentially has to happen over the next 2 days, or this low pressure system again is going to run into that boundary and no chances of development will be supported after that. So right now it's low chances of development. It's likely not going to happen. And even if it did, it's really not something that we would have to worry about at all. It's continuing to push towards the northeast, and we've seen probably the most impacts that we're going to see from it at the moment. It's filtering more moisture into our area, and that's about all it's going to do for us. It's not the only area that we've been watching over the last couple of days. We've also, for many days now, probably since last weekend, had our eye on this tropical wave out here in the central Atlantic. So this pushed off the west coast of Africa into the central Atlantic over the last couple of days. It's just a little area here. The idea is that as it continues pushing further into the Atlantic, pushing into the western Atlantic, that's when it may encounter an environment that might be conducive for it to produce some tropical activity. So right now it's a 0% chance of development over the next 2 days. Why is that the case? Well, as it kind of pushes further here into the Atlantic, right along this region, it's running into some pretty dry Saharan air. So it won't really be able to develop any further while it's moving through this region. But as it pushes further into the Atlantic, this kind of outlined region here from the National Hurricane Center has much better chances of supporting it developing. So the National Hurricane Center has named this Invest 96L. Now we talk about this term invest from time to time. It may sound kind of complicated. Overall, what that term means is that the National Hurricane Center is pretty certain that this will be a tropical depression or a tropical storm within the next 7 days. That's all invest means. So likely we'll be watching this over the next week or so, and it's probably going to become a tropical depression within the next 7 days. Thus, the 50% chance of development over the next 7 days. There's not really a great chance of this becoming some sort of major system. No models are really indicating that at the moment, but there's a chance that it could be at least a tropical depression within the next 7 days. So not something we're talking about immediately, but we'll be watching this over the next week or so for potential development. And then beyond what it does in this region here, we'll have to keep seeing. Models have a lot of disagreement about whether this thing is going to turn towards the west, whether it's going to turn towards the east. We don't really know exactly where it's going to go. So we'll just have to keep our eye on this over the next week or so. But don't be surprised if you see this turn into a tropical depression within the coming week. In terms of where we stand with the 2025 hurricane season, we're kind of right on track, maybe slightly ahead of track, but we're having a pretty average season so far. We have had 4 named storms, all of which have been tropical storms. We've not yet seen a hurricane in this 2025 season. The next name on the list to grab would be the E name, which would be Aaron. So to kind of take a look at hurricane frequency, where we should be for this time of year versus where we typically stand, we tend to see a big uptick in activity as we head into the month of August. So now we're into the month of August. Remember, the peak of hurricane season is right around September 10th, so we'll be approaching the peak before too long. So increase in activity is definitely not uncommon for this time of year. I mentioned we have not yet seen the first hurricane of the season. On average, that typically occurs right around August 11th. So we'll keep our eye here over the next, I guess that's in a couple of days, and see kind of what happens maybe with that system out there in the central Atlantic. But that's on average when we would see the first hurricane of the season. The months between August and October, so all the way through October, is when we tend to see the most activity of the hurricane season. On average, we see 11 to 12 named storms. When we take a look at the average, that's a good chunk of the hurricane season. That's a really hefty amount of the actual season. If we kind of take a look at the projected amount that the Colorado State University and NOAA is thinking here, it's kind of a wide range. I didn't update this graphic, but as of the last couple of days, NOAA actually did bump their range down just a touch. So they've gone from 12 to 18, 5 to 9, and 2 to 4. So basically just kind of adjusting their forecast with how many hurricanes we've seen so far, or with how many tropical storms we've seen so far, I should say, and what they're expecting for the rest of the season. So we'll kind of see how this plays out. Again, we're entering what should be the most active period of the season, and luckily, things aren't looking super promising as of right now. So we'll kind of keep our fingers crossed on that. And again, just keep watching as we go throughout the next couple of days. But one thing that we've had here in Central Georgia that has been kind of a big change is the numbers. Again, yesterday's high was 85 degrees on average for this time of year. We're right around 93, and the record high for this time of year, 100 degrees. We are far, far, far away from that number. For the next couple of days, check this out. We're going to be in the 80s all the way through next Tuesday. So the 80s actually are going to hang out with us for a little bit longer, but you'll notice through the weekend we're still kind of hanging out in the mid 80s, and then we start to creep our way back towards average as we head into Tuesday, more really as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. If we look at this temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, we're really expected to creep back above average as we head into kind of the next week or so. I know, but you have several days to kind of work your way towards that number. Again, we're not just going to jump straight into the upper 90s in the next couple of days. In fact, take a look at your 7-day forecast. We're going to slowly work our way to that number. So it's going to be really the mid 80s kind of through the weekend here. Again, increased rain chances and cloud cover is really what's going to hold us at that number. So it's not necessarily going to be nice, bright, sunny days hanging out in the 80s. It'll likely come with some cloud cover and some rain chances, but it's the 80s, so we'll take it. As we head towards the middle of the work week, that's when the rain chances start to go down and the temperatures start to go back up. But I mentioned we're kind of slowly finding our way there. We're going to go to the upper 80s and then slowly to the low 90s. And right now, there's no upper 90s on the 7-day forecast. So we'll take what we can get, kind of winding our way towards average for this time of year, especially in the month of August. So that is a look at your extended forecast for the upcoming weekend. Again, meteorologist Alex Pry will be back soon. He's just taking a well-earned vacation. Of course, me and meteorologist David Guerrero will be here all weekend long, keeping you informed with the latest on your forecast. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you back here next week.